Czech Center for Investigative Reporting and Dark Riviera present Protagonista, a war room content project hosted by Pavla Holcová. Protagonista puts investigative reporters at the heart of the story. Among the first journalists targeted by Israel's Pegasus spyware, Szabolcs reveals the psychological warfare of constant surveillance, the dangers inherent in investigative journalism, and the sophisticated manipulation and disinformation strategies deployed against journalists. Can you describe the situation? How did you learn that, okay, I have spyware on my phone?
It was a process. It happened throughout many weeks. First, it was my boss, András Pető, the founder of Direct 36, who told me that...
How did he... Give me all the details. How did he tell you?
We were in our office on Pozsonyi Street, downtown Budapest, very close to the Danube. Very nice street, lots of trees, cafes, restaurants. Many journalists live in that district. And András told me that...
so you're walking on a street, there's cafe, there are trees, it's beautiful out there. Is it spring, late spring?
Yeah, it was, I think, March or April, maybe March.
It was.
Probably it was a little cold. And he told me that Frederik Obermeier from Süddeutsche Zeitung used to work there, now works for Paper Trail Media. Frederik asked him for my phone number and also the phone number of Zoltán Varga. He's a Hungarian entrepreneur, a media entrepreneur who owns independent media in Hungary, and today he also owns also in Poland and other countries. And Frederik also asked for the phone number of another reporter, a crime reporter, who used to work for Átlátszó, which is also another Hungarian investigative outlet. And that he was told that there's a project, some international project that may interest us. But first we have to get our phones checked forensically before they can tell us anything more about this project. And already at that time, I mean, it was very obvious, okay, it's an international project. They are looking for phone numbers. They want to check our phones. What can this project be about?
No. I think it's about planting of, gardenias.
So then both András and myself, we got our phones checked. Amnesty International's tech lab did it. It's all a blur now, but I guess it was a couple of weeks later when we were told that András' phone was okay, but my phone was infected with a spyware.
Okay, it really sounds like a moment when you need to take a deep breath, because you need to probably tell your sources, your girlfriend, your family, that maybe our conversations were not private at all.
Yeah, so the thing was that we were told not to talk to anyone about this. Mm-hmm. I was freaking out because at that time, it was 2021 March or April, I was working on a story that became very explosive. It was a China-related story, and I talked to some very good sources. And I just felt that if it's true that I was surveilled and my phone is hacked, it means that my communication on WhatsApp, Signal, Wire, Telegram...
you name it, sure.
And my reaction, it was a panic reaction. I told András that, look, I think I have to tell to some sources so they can make some preemptive measures. And he was like, no. We were told not to tell anyone. It's a sensitive project. We don't have enough information yet, so you must not tell it to anyone. So before that, I had like a conference call with András, with Sandrine, with Frederick, and a couple of other guys, someone from Amnesty Tech Lab. And that's when they told me more details about the surveillance. Problem was that some small details, like it happened in 2019, not in 2021, it was not disclosed. I guess all of us were just so nervous that, and also the journalists on the other end, they were very excited because it turned out that I was one of the first confirmed cases of Pegasus infection.
So they were actually happy that you've been infected.
I think so. I mean, my phone was among the first ones that was technically forensically analyzed, and they could find the traces. So the tech guys, they were very excited because they had finally more direct information. I was like a lab rat in that regard. So yeah, they forgot to tell me that this hacking into my phone is not an active one. Once they told me, I was like, guys, yeah, couldn't you have just told me this in the beginning? But anyway, I freaked out, I panicked. So it was like an emotional roller coaster when they told me that this happened in 2019.
So what happened in Hungary?
So what happened is that Frederick and Bastian Obermeier, they came to Hungary. I think this was either late March or April. I don't really remember. And we met in a hotel room, and there was a laptop set up. And this laptop had access to, that was the first time that we got introduced to this leaked database of 50,000 phone numbers that, at that time you already had access to it, I guess, which was leaked to Forbidden Stories and to Amnesty International, and it contained the phone numbers of all of the targets of the Pegasus spyware, who were targeted by different clients of the Israeli NSO group who developed this spyware. Obviously, when they start the surveillance and when all the information, because Pegasus can access your contact list, your notes, your messages, photos, everything.
We should probably mention that this spyware, Pegasus, was classified as a military tool, so only governments can buy it. So
with the approval of the Ministry of Defense or Justice?
Of Israel.
Of Israel.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's when they showed us this database where, like, it was not itself the leaked database. It was already like sorted database where you already put the names that you identified that belong to phone numbers, and that's where I saw my phone number and my name, and the phone number and the name of a very well-known Hungarian mobster in the 90s, the phone number and the name of a former Orbán government minister, the phone number and the name of other Hungarian journalists. What was the most exciting for me is that the phone number and the name and some other words, anyone outside of Hungary would not understand that abbreviation, but I understood that this guy was a department head of the Hungarian Signals Intelligence Agency, and I got really excited. Like, why is that phone number and why is that name there? He was very likely trying out like a showroom, the stuff on his own phone, very likely against the rules, because you should never use your own phone number when you test military grade spyware. It's going to be another story. Maybe I tell later that I actually called up this guy and had a brief chat with him. Seeing this list, a couple of names are completely legitimate targets of surveillance: mobsters, criminals. Others are completely unfathomable, like Attila Csikán.
Why?
And then there were, of course, the names of journalists who were like both surprising and not surprising. And yeah, I had this feeling that, I'm on the same list as criminals, mobsters, mafia
I
heads.
told you, you're enemy of the state. Come on, accept
But at the
it.
same time, I'm on the list with very respected people. So
Okay, I'll take the
was
better half.
very, very mixed feelings. Like I felt pride, I felt shame, I was shocked, but most of all, I was full of adrenaline. And in a very perverted way, I was extremely happy that I have access to this great material. Like this is something that every journalist wants to work on. And what made me extremely proud is that they decided that they actually wanted me on this project. They wanted me to investigate these abuses with the spyware. And when I told them that like I'm a liability, like it's proven that I was surveilled before. Isn't it reckless to involve someone in the team who was already under surveillance and who's very likely maybe still under surveillance? And don't you think it would compromise the whole? And throughout the whole Pegasus project, because it was then called Pegasus project, I was scared as shit until publication day that I'm gonna be the weakest link and the whole thing's gonna be fucked, because through surveilling me, what if I'm not careful enough and the Hungarian government is still after me, and I would be the one through whom they just download all the information from the project and they can meddle with our reporting, but eventually they were taken by surprise, which means that we all did a good job in counter-surveillance measures.
How much does it cost to put spyware on someone's phone?
Well, actually, we don't know.
How much did you cost Hungarian government?
It's not the Hungarian government, it's the Hungarian taxpayers.
Oh, sorry, the taxpayers.
It's public money. So
okay, so how many hospitals could we have instead of lame information coming from your phone?
Well, it was at least a couple of tens of thousands of euros or dollars for sure. We cannot definitely say because there are different packages that NSO Group sells. So, the more targets you want to have quota for, the cheaper the package is. There's always a fee for installation, maintenance, development.
Okay, tell me how does it work? How do you work with spyware if you are designated member of the Secret Service and you just, I wanna pinch the phone of Sabi?
So I talked to a couple of sources who used to handle these documents, and I was told that even like very experienced people, that they don't remember a single case under a single Hungarian government when any of these surveillance requests was refused.
Okay.
Because by the time it gets to the Minister of Justice, all the lawyers see it and they twitch everything in a way that it's legal. So in my case, I still don't know why they surveilled me and what was the official excuse and what was the real explanation. The real explanation, yeah. I kind of know the real explanation, but I would be very interested in the official explanation. But the official explanation must be something that Szabolcs Panyi, Hungarian investigative journalist, keeps contact with diplomats who are undercover spies, keeps contact with people who are connected to organized crime, keeps contact with
do they consider
extremists.
Okay.
I mean, if you're an investigative journalist, then
of course.
Then who are you keeping contact with, right? So I think that the official explanation for my surveillance must be something that I'm connected, I'm in the network, I'm in the orbit of spies, terrorists, criminals.
So they never gave you official explanation?
No, why would they? I mean, in Hungary, we have such a loose and unregulated surveillance that in some civilized countries, after you were surveilled, they let you know. I mean, if you're innocent, of course.
Well, if you are not, you will know as well.
Yes, that's true. In my case, I was surveilled for 7 months, and I only learned from it from the Pegasus project leak.
Okay, so how do you handle it now? You're probably still under some kind of surveillance, so how to live with it?
Well, I mean, use paper to keep information and notes, meet people, meet sources in person, be very mindful of what devices I'm using. But the most important thing is not to get insane, not to get fixated too much on the fact that you're under surveillance, because if you do that, then at some point you just lose your sanity, and if you lose your sanity, you're not only becoming mad, but you're becoming a very bad journalist who's making errors that will kill your career in the end of the day.
Okay, so you've got this, you are in this dark paranoia that's really bugging you, or it's really in your head. So how to get out of it? And tell me, you mentioned that you just try to deal with it by working more, but...
It does work. Like, working does help when you don't have free time to think about it.
That's not healing. It's just, delaying the problem.
Time does help. I mean, you just encounter other problems in your life, so you suddenly don't have that much time to dwell on surveillance. But also, in my case, it does help that I think I fairly understood how surveillance works. I thought that because you wrote something there when I was talking about identifying the phone number of a Secret Service guy, the one who...
So you called the head...
So I called the guy who tried out Pegasus on his own phone.
Just can you briefly describe who is this guy? Like, what is his...
So what we knew from the database, that someone saved his number with his name and with his title. Mm-hmm. The title is like some department head of the Special Service for National Security. But obviously I have sources, so I asked around, and I was told that guy's like he's in charge of the unit that handles spywares, for example. And it was already autumn 2021, so we already published the main stories about journalists, media company owners who were surveilled in Hungary. And that's when I thought that why not write a story about this guy? Mm-hmm. So I called him. I mean, he already knew who I am.
Of course, he knew every detail.
He already knew about the story. So my mission was, because what I expected is that he's either not going to pick up or just end the call immediately. So my mission was to just keep him on the line, to somehow try to get any information from him. So
that's challenging, right?
Called him, I introduced myself, and what shocked me is that he didn't hang up, and maybe it's just me imagining, but his voice was actually sad. And I tried to keep him on the line by explaining to him why I'm calling, how I identified him. And he was like, And in the end, he only told like one or two sentences. I clearly remember he said, if this is all true what you're telling me, then you understand why I cannot reply your questions. And throughout the whole conversation, I had the feeling that he somewhat expected my call, because obviously he read the articles, so he knew that we have the leaked phone numbers. He also knew that he tried out Pegasus on his own phone, so he knew that his phone number was going to be there.
A tiniest possibility that it was not him putting the Pegasus spyware on his phone.
I was thinking about that too. Maybe someone surveilled him because of some background check, but it doesn't really add up. And the way he reacted and behaved, I had the feeling that he feels guilty. At least that was my feeling when I was talking to this guy. I almost felt sorry for him.
Almost. Okay.
He could have leaked this stuff to journalists. So there's always,
Maybe he did.
Well, you know much more about the Pegasus project than I do.
Okay. We are going to wrap up, but one thing that we should probably explain: why should journalists have any special privileges? If you can surveil anyone in the country with a good reason, why not a journalist?
That's a tough question. In a democratic society, journalists play an important role. And
how?
In the case of Hungary, and I know I said in a democratic society, but in the case of Hungary, for example, and this I'm basing on a recent conversation I had with someone working for the government. We have a government that's captured by Russian interests. There's not a single actor working for the Hungarian state who has the legal authority and who has the political power to do background checks on Prime Minister Viktor Orbán, Foreign Minister Péter Szijjártó, Propaganda Minister Antal Rogán. The intelligence agencies, the counterintelligence agencies, the police, the tax offices, they report to these people. They get tasks from these people. Everything they do ends up on the desk of our government. I think that's the role of the journalists in such a system, but also in democratic societies where there's no one else with the ability to investigate those who have the real power, because everyone else is a subordinate to them.
So that's why journalists need special privileges to do it.
Well, it's in the law that we have a right to protect our sources. It's even in the law in Hungary. I know it's limited.
Oh, they are going to change it soon. Don't worry.
I think they would not do it, because why would that be good for them when they can just disregard it anyway? So we have this privilege that unless it's a very serious crime, we can refuse to reveal our sources to a judge or in an investigation. That's just how civilized countries enact media laws, even in Hungary. And when you're getting surveilled with a spyware, it means that your right to protect your sources is fully infringed. But not just with journalists. There's lawyers. We identified more than 10 lawyers in Hungary, including the head of the Hungarian Bar Association, like the most senior lawyer of the country, who were also targeted with Pegasus. They have attorney-client privilege, which means nothing when you have a spyware on your phone. This is how democratic societies work. The rule of law cannot be working if the political power has access to every kind of information and secret of all of its citizens. So,
what do you think people in general got wrong about the concept of investigative reporting? What they don't understand about our job?
Yeah, the most common thing that I hear, even from very sophisticated and knowledgeable people, is that basically they think that journalists, even investigative journalists, they are just pawns of political or other interests. That when you publish something, it's because it's in the interest of someone else. They just
who gave you the information?
Who ordered us to publish, and why is it published that exact day?
That's always the question.
Why is it published one day after or one day before something happens? Usually that's when I learn something happened or something will happen. I think that a lot of people don't understand that, investigative journalists are a different breed, but we're journalists. So we operate in newsrooms. We have editors, we have fact checkers, we have lawyers.
We hate it's taking so long to publish anything.
Maybe we should explain to people how we fact check our articles. Maybe we should explain to people.
Not us, someone else, and it's pretty negative.
Yeah.
It's we call it at OCCRP fact checking of articles. We call waterboarding, because it's such an experience, when you really need to prove everything, every single word you write in the article.
I think what people don't understand is that it's a teamwork. It's not a lone wolf. It's just part of a team where there's lots of very smart people with different skills putting together all their knowledge into one story, and it's never about a journalist who has a mania of following one topic. It's sometimes very random, but it's just a very complicated business. What people don't understand about investigative journalists is our motives, our incentives. We want to be the first, the most accurate, with the most explosive story. We thrive when there's pressure. We thrive when we feel that basically we're hunting down corrupt people. It gives us a lot of adrenaline. When people ask me, like, why are you doing it? Is it because you want to uncover these wrongdoings and hold those in power accountable? Yeah, of course I want to do it, but it gives me so much adrenaline that probably I'm addicted to it. And once you get into investigative journalism, I think that you start to believe that this is the most important thing that one can do, and you cannot really imagine yourself doing anything else.
I can. Like.
Yeah, I could also go back to literature. Of course, I can imagine. But
I want to have some job. One day I want to have some job, zero responsibility. Flipping burgers or something.
You sound burnt out a little bit.
No. One day. I said one day, not tomorrow.
So I guess what people don't get, and what I love about investigative journalism is that no work-life balance. That it consumes all of your energies and interests, that every day could be extremely interesting. One day you talk to a homeless guy, the other day you talk to a former prime minister, and most of the times the homeless guy is much nicer and
more honest
person. It's extremely diverse and extremely challenging. But it's like the most exciting thing one can do in their lives. And, when you're getting surveilled, it's also just a small spice in your life. But on a more serious note, and just getting back to the Pegasus story and what you told, that, you went to Mexico and you went to Azerbaijan, It was also a huge help for me psychologically to process this whole surveillance, to learn about the stories of what happened to other journalists. Some got jailed for many, many years.
Someone got assassinated at the embassy.
Someone got assassinated, and then he got... there was a bone saw that they used
torture,
to cut him
chopped.
to pieces. And then they put his body in acid. Mm-hmm. A lot of horrible things happened to journalists, partly stemming from their surveillance. And when I read your stories, when I read the stories of other colleagues, in the end I felt that I'm just extremely lucky. And I would be the most coward people on earth if I gave up journalism just because I was surveilled when someone got killed, someone got jailed, others got tortured. Like, who am I to complain about what was happening to me? But
can you imagine one single event that would lead you to pack your suitcase and just leave?
Well, if I answer this question, then
they will do it, right?
Yeah. Right. I would not like to go into hypothetical scenarios, but as long as I'm physically able to do the reporting, and as long as I'm mentally stable to do it, and as long as I have a platform where I can write, then I will write.